Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books, and I've been covering Disney and Star Wars pretty closely these last several months. So there's an announcement from Lucasfilm, which really is just an interview with Kathleen Kennedy, saying that, hey, Kevin Feige never actually really had a movie in development with Lucasfilm. And that's strange to hear, because supposedly Kevin Feige, Patty Jenkins, Taika Waititi, he was supposed to be making a film. He's not even really making his film. The Patty Jenkins film completely canceled, though she recently just said again, well, it's not necessarily completely canceled. Just absolutely ridiculous how they run their business over there. How is it that the head of Marvel Studios is announcing that he's working on a Star Wars movie, which Lucasfilm, Star Wars, a big property for Disney, but it never really was in development? It sounds like he never even had her permission to make these kinds of announcements. Now, it also always seems to look like Kathleen Kennedy's going to get fired, and then somehow, because she's a vampire immortal, she's never fired for the company, and she's always given like an extra 2 years to get something done. That's inexplicable. But she has been at the Disney studio since before Bob Iger got there. Somehow she stays at the company. Though I have to say, if I had to choose between Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy, at this point, the more stories that I do, the more that I find out about these people, the more comments I see them make, the products I see them produce, I don't know which one is worse anymore. Let me know which one you think is worse in the comments below, Kevin Feige or Kathleen Kennedy. Let's get into this article from the Direct. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Star Wars. Lucasfilm issues surprising statement on Kevin Feige's movie. Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy shed some light on the Star Wars movie, which was supposedly being produced by Marvel's Kevin Feige. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige is seemingly one of the busiest people in Hollywood, responsible for producing and managing the continually expanding Marvel Cinematic Universe, which of course has had some of its own problems lately. The guy has a lot of plates to keep spinning at any given time. That's why it came as something of a surprise when back in 2019, it was reported that Feige was developing a Star Wars feature film that he would also produce. But as it turns out, things might not have been what they seemed to be. Feige-led Star Wars film was never developed. And when you say never developed, for a movie to go into development, all that means is the studio has sort of expressed interest. A producer could also just be spending money with usually the permission from the studio that owns or controls the intellectual property. But in development also doesn't mean it's going to get made. A movie could be in development for 10 years, a movie could be in development for 15 years, also never get done. And sometimes money is being spent by the producer, sometimes the studio is subsidizing the producer as they're doing it. But you wouldn't think an announcement like this would go around where the head of Marvel is announcing that he's going to be essentially making a Star Wars movie, or someone is announcing in fan media that they're working on this. Neither him or Kathleen Kennedy would comment on it. Very strange. Speaking to IGN at Star Wars Celebration 2023, Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy spilled the beans on Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie. Quite unexpectedly, Kennedy asserted that there was never any such film in development, going so far as to say the studio never discussed an idea. Quote, Kevin Feige's project was something announced in the press, or I suppose fandom, but there was nothing. Nothing ever got developed. We never discussed an idea. That is about the least you could do, other than saying, I'd like to do something based on your property. Like, okay, well, what would you like to do? Well, I'd like to do a story that would kind of be like this. Okay, well, then you've discussed an idea. Even if it's one sentence, it's an idea, it's a high concept, but not even an idea. As everybody knows, Kevin is a huge Star Wars fan. If he did come up with something, I would be all ears. But that's never really happened, so it's not an abandoned project. It just never really happened. But it is shocking that the much publicized Star Wars installment was seemingly never an active project. It's even more surprising because screenwriter Michael Waldron stated in 2022 that he'd already begun penning the movie script, saying, quote, finally into it in earnest, writing away, end quote. Either certain parties got their wires crossed or someone isn't being entirely truthful about the nature of Feige's project. Now, this is also something where Waldron could have been working on a spec script, meaning spec is you ain't getting paid. It means you're working on it speculatively, hoping that if it's bought, you're going to get a nice big check. People do that. Even people with credibility do that sometimes if they want to work on a project and they have time available. So that's a possibility. But it is strange that Kathleen Kennedy said she's never even heard of an idea. And here's this guy writing a spec script, presumably for Kevin Feige. IGN also inquired about the status of some of the other Star Wars projects that some have deemed to be shelved. Kennedy denied that particular status, noting that development of content is a long-term process. And she's right about that. But shelved, meaning like, should I expect to see this movie in the next 5 years? Should I expect to see it in the next 10 years, 20 years? The fact that you're just developing something and okay, we're looking at it every now and then, but it's not moving into production. It's not actively one of the top 3 things that you're going to put into production, like supposedly the 3 new movies that were announced just recently. They're all going to be produced somehow, and at least one of them should be out by December 2025, according to Bob Iger's demands. At least that's what the rumor says. Quote, well, those things haven't been shelved. Development is a complicated long-term process. Some people were dealing with scheduling because obviously really talented people are working. So it's often not shelving, just an is it ready? That's really what it comes down to. You select people that you want to work on a project and they don't have any time to work on it. So then the development takes all that much longer and it becomes impossible to schedule and things never get released. Would Kevin Feige ever have time for Star Wars? As indicated, Kevin Feige is an extraordinarily busy man. This is also in the midst of some fans feeling that the MCU has fallen from grace post-Avengers Endgame and middling reviews and at times poor box office performance. Well, I'm sure we all feel that way. So it's safe to say that Feige and his team over at Marvel Studios have their hands full, especially as they transition into a philosophy of quality over quantity, as evidenced by many MCU projects getting massively delayed. In short, he very likely has no time to make a Star Wars movie. Still, it is strange that fans have gotten 2 separate conflicting reports over whether or not Feige's movie ever really existed. See, this is something I don't understand. Why would Kathleen Kennedy not come out and tell Feige and say, hey, I need you to not tell people that you're developing a Star Wars movie, or somehow the media thinks you're developing a Star Wars movie. You know we haven't even discussed it. It makes it look like I'm involved in it. It's confusing. It's complicated. Could you please just put out an announcement that while you love Star Wars and you'd love to work on a movie sometime for it, you're really tied up with Marvel and there's no active plans to do anything like that, and that we haven't even discussed an idea. I mean, why they wouldn't communicate about something like that when they both work for the same company, I have no idea. It really creates weirdness and problems for everyone. Nevertheless, there's still tons of Star Wars content on the horizon. 3 new films were announced at Celebration, Star Wars Celebration, including a feature that details the origins of the Jedi. Also among the new theatrical projects are a Mandoverse crossover movie and a Rise of Skywalker sequel of sorts. And for Kathleen Kennedy's claim that some Star Wars projects have not been shelved, this is probably accurate. Development of a movie or TV show does take a really long time. In fact, Donald Glover very recently claimed that his seemingly forgotten Lando show was still on the table. Development does take a very long time, but they don't know what they're doing strategically over at Star Wars. Not really up for debate. It's understood that they're trying to figure out what to do with it while not giving fans what they want. So they have got all these different directions that they're trying to go in. They're hoping they can announce these 3 projects. One of them will get some momentum, maybe creatively, maybe in the press. Maybe one of the actors will do something good and people will become more interested in the project. They need to do something with Star Wars as a film. Otherwise, it's no longer a film franchise. It's gone too many years without them releasing something really inexplicably. So they've got to release something. I don't know which of these 3 movies you think is going to be good or which of these 3 you think are actually going to come out. I don't know if you should trust them at all, but any of these are going to come out. I think they've probably started on all 3 and they just figure whichever one is going the best at the time, that's the one they'll release December 2025. But let me know what you think. Are you interested in any of these movies that are coming out? Do you think any of them will come out? Of the 3, which one do you think is the most likely to actually get released? Always love to see your comments. Really appreciate you taking the time to do them. Thank you so much for that. Also, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.